All righty, mic check. Let me guys know if you can hear me. Okay, let me get that extra backup audio for redundancy. Perfection. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Raleigh Fishing Show. We are down here. It is 4 p.m. My goodness, time flies. We are back for the final couple of segments of the day here. Weather's still really good outside. If you guys don't know, just to let you know, the show will be opening at 10 a.m. tomorrow. It's going to be delayed a little bit just because the weather's coming in, but a ton of deals, ton of great people to talk to, including this gentleman. Sir, thank you so much for joining me today. Please just tell everyone at home what you're doing here and what we can find you doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. My name is Daryl Stevenson, and I'm running the Bassmaster High School and Junior Series booth at the Expo. Just trying to get people introduced and try to give people information about the Bassmaster High School program here in North Carolina.
So how long have you been doing this for?
So I've actually been running a Bassmaster High School program for middle school and a high school for about 5 years. But I've actually took over the eastern part of the North Carolina state for the last 2 years.
Wow.
So I've been working with Bob Bauer, who's the Bassmaster state director, and we've kind of been doing it jointly for the last 2 years. And this year, he retired last year, so now I'm doing the eastern part of the state by myself now this year.
That's a lot.
No, it's fun. I enjoy it. I really like getting kids involved in fishing and stuff like that, and it's kind of a passion of mine. My son does it, so it's kind of, a little bit of self getting him out there and getting him fishing and stuff like that, but I also like to see kids fishing too.
Can you reflect on the time? I was a guy that did do high school fishing in college in the infancy. Like my college days was FLW is what all the trophy stuff say. So that was a long time ago now. How has it changed and evolved from day one of high school till now?
Yeah, I think it's involved a lot with social media. But I think that, I would say 10 or 12 years ago, NC State was premier program in the country, right? But I think that there was not a lot of college programs at the time. Now, I think there's well over 100 college programs in the country that have fishing teams. They also offer scholarships for fishing. So at the college level, if you have 100 schools, over 100 schools that are offering scholarships for fishing, that trickles down into the high school programs now, where every state in the country has high school fishing. They offer, Bassmaster does a great job promoting high school throughout the country. I guess a perfect example, last year we went to Chickamauga for the national championship. There was well over 250 boats there. The year before that, there was well over 400 boats at Lake Hartwell competing for the high school national championship. So as you can see, high school fishing in the country is really grown. I think it has a lot to do with social media, but it also, I think it has to do with the sport itself just growing, kids seeing there's opportunities to get out and get outdoors and have a great time. But at the same time, there's opportunities for kids to get involved in the sport.
This is an off-the-wall question. Everyone's going to find boring, probably except me. But I was involved in youth sports for a really long time. I was a strength and conditioning coach for 16 years. I umpired and stuff. And the biggest thing when you're dealing with kids is safety. I know in college, it's like if there was a lightning bolt, it's one thing. Is we're all adults. It's another thing with kids. Now you're dealing with a 400 boat tournament. Let's say not you, but on a body of water with kids. Like, how does that work pre-tournament when you have iffy weather? That's got to be stressful for you when you have big events like that you have to watch over.
Yeah, sure. I think that a lot of things go into it. First off, before you even get to a tournament, you have all of the safety gear that's on the boat with you. The kids are wearing life jackets. The kids, there's even the boat captains and everything wear, the safety harness, the kill switch and everything like that, so that the boat cuts off if you get into a tricky situation. But throughout the year, it's kind of like a well-oiled machine on the boat. If when I'm the boat captain working with the two anglers, they kind of know what to expect if we get into a situation where something's kind of going wrong. But even when we get to the tournaments, like say when we got to the national championship, Glenn Cale and the Bassmaster staff, we have all the numbers that we need to call. They have the ability to talk to us through cell phone and stuff like that, send out messages and stuff. If weather is getting bad or stuff, they have the ability to reach out to us and say, hey, get off the water or get to a safe zone on the water until the weather passes and stuff. So really the ability to be able to reach out to us and talk to us on the water is there, and they make sure that we have all of that information ahead of time so that, the kids are taken care of and make sure that they're safe. And that's the boat captain's job. Every boat captain now, especially this year, even before we get ready to go to Harris Shane next week, that's one of the things that Bassmaster's doing, our BASS and Bassmaster, they are requiring us to have our boater safety, not only for the boat captains, but for the boat anglers to go there. Everybody has to have their boater safety course completed. So you have a little bit of foundational training and stuff like that before you go.
That is big because
Yeah.
when I was a kid, it was the Wild West when we did it.
Yeah, and I know that there was a little bit of complaining that was a requirement this year, but I'm not complaining about it. It's foundational training that I think every kid needs. One of the things that I worry about is my kid goes off to college is that there's something that I did not teach him or train him. He has hundreds of hours on the water, and if something were to happen to him, I want to know that he's had all the training that he needs.
How, if someone's listening to this, that let's say we'll go with scenario number one, which is they want to start their own chapter or club or what have you, if that's even possible, how would they go about doing it?
Sure, there's a bunch of different ways. The easiest way is you go to the Bassmaster webpage. There's actually a link up at the top that says to join and then start a club. And you basically click on the link. All of the PDFs and everything that they need, you can download right there and be able to pull down the information to actually start a club. If you're here in North Carolina and you're having issues and you're still having problems finding it, if you go to nchighschoolfishing.org or nchighschoolfishing.com, the links on that page right there basically will get you my information or Chris Poirier, who runs the western part of the state, and we will get you everything that you need to know to be able to start a club in the state. But all of the information is on the webpage. You can download everything and just be able to fill it out and get everybody rolling.
How many tournaments do you guys have in your regular season? Like your, I guess, inter squad, I guess, like what is, when you call them local versus like the Harris chain, do you have different events like that?
Yeah, so in North Carolina, we have 3 different trails. We have Eastern, Western, and Mountain Series.
Eastern, okay.
So Eastern Series, we run pretty much the rivers and all the way over to Jordan and Falls Lake.
Okay.
We run 6 tournaments. The western part of the state, it's basically from the other side of Falls all the way over to, say, Lake Norman and stuff like that, Hickory, Bait and Tillery, and those Lake High Rock. They run 6. And then the Mountain Series, which is over Chattooga, Lake James, lakes like that, Hiawassee, and they run 6 also. So North Carolina runs 18 regular series tournaments throughout the season, and then we'll run a state championship. We'll run a junior and a high school state championship this year.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
And you have to, and you're overseeing all of that.
I do. I run the eastern part of the state. Another gentleman named Chris Poirier, he runs the western part of the state, and then there's another gentleman by the name of Jonathan Foster that runs the Mountain Series. We work together to run North Carolina together.
So topical now because of the hurricane that happened in the fall with the Mountain Series. Like, how is that place looking in 2025 with everything that happened?
Yeah, so we were able to get in quite a few tournaments in the fall, even with the hurricane stuff. We had some that was before the hurricane, and then we still think we're going to be able to get a couple in. So Lake James, we'll still be able to get one of those in April. April 12th will be that tournament on Lake James. And we're looking at adding a couple of others, even with, what happened there, the very unfortunate hurricane that went through and stuff, we still think we'll be able to get a tournament in the spring. And, those guys, there's still high school anglers there that have been coming even to, our high school anglers travel throughout the state. Like my guys from the east will go all the way over, fish the mountain and fish the west. And those, the guys in the mountains, they're coming, they want to fish, right? Regardless of, some of the devastation and stuff that happened, there's still high school anglers that want to get out and fish and stuff like that, because it's hard times, but at the same time, they need a little bit of a break from it. They need some respite from the difficult times. So
is the logistics of what you do, is it comparable to travel baseball, or is it just way crazier because you're dealing with boats and getting kids back and forth different places? Like, how much of a nightmare is it for you just to get everybody where they're supposed to be each year for each tournament?
No, I think it's comparable. I did coach travel baseball before this, and my son was playing travel baseball, and we kind of got to a crossroads in life where he's like, Dad, I'd rather fish than play travel baseball. And I said, well, we can't do both. He said, I'd rather fish. So we gave up travel baseball and went down the fishing path. And I see a lot of similarities. There's a lot of traveling to, distant location, staying in a hotel room and stuff like that. Sure, we're not, with travel baseball, you're not pulling a boat, but a lot of the other similarities there. You're going ahead of time, practicing a day or two, staying in a hotel, stuff like that. There's a lot of the same logistics. You're just pulling a boat along. So, days away from the family stuff is true. You're missing some school. But I will say that a lot of times if we communicate with the school ahead of time, communicate with the teachers, they're able to make up their work. And
that's true.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great at the same time that the teachers also work with us, because we're a lot of times working with a high school program.
So people that don't know that are listening to this about high school fishing in particular, so we'll stick with the baseball reference. In high school, usually the baseball season will end before the school year is over. With high school fishing, is it have to follow the school schedule at all, or are you free to have tournaments in the summertime as well? Or
yeah, no. So we pretty much go year round. We start our season in August, August or September. And we'll go up until about December will be the first part of the year. We'll take a break late December and January, pick back up in February. We try to wrap up our regular season May or June, so that we can get ready for nationals, because the high school nationals will be usually July or August. And that's somewhere outside of the state that we'll go for nationals. And so we got to make sure that all our national berths are wrapped up, and we know who has qualified for nationals before early June.
What is the Harris chain then coming up? Is that a...
Yeah, so the Harris chain for us we leave next Sunday, and that is a Bassmaster Open.
Okay.
So there's several different paths to be able to go to the national championship. You can make that through high school point series. So winning the high school point series, winning a high school state championship, or through Bassmaster Opens. And the Bassmaster Opens, they take the top 10% of every tournament you go to. Those guys qualify for the national championship also.
There's a lot more ways to qualify than when I was a kid. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. And that when you go to the national championship, it's a big tournament. So again, it's a great opportunity for kids to be able to fish at that higher level. It's also a great exposure for kids, like especially when you want to go fishing college, to be able to fish different lakes. We like going to, especially my club, we take several boats down to the opens and stuff, because we're fishing outside of the state. We're getting exposed to not only different competition, but different lakes. Mm-hmm. So this year we'll fish the Bassmaster Open at the Harris Chain. We have some teams going to Smith Lake in Coleman, Alabama, and then we'll have some teams going to Carr Lake, which is, obviously one of our home lakes here. So
when we go, keeping with the baseball reference, because why not? We're on a roll. If you have a team that's not good at hitting an off-speed pitch, you can practice with that. What's been fun about being down here is learning North Carolina culture. Where I grew up is the Potomac River, tidal river rat, born and bred. But then you get the shakes if you're not used to fishing like a Lake Murray, which I learned real hard in college. That's different. When you're here, do you have to think about, like, we have to practice at different places to fill out our game? So when we go to a Harris chain, it's not like oh my God.
So I will say, I think North Carolina sets us up exceptionally well for a lot of places that we go in the country. And the reason I say that is because we have the river area down by Albemarle Sound and stuff like that.
True.
That that translates well to the Harris chain. A lot of cypress trees and stuff like that. You kind of fish a shallow, little bit dark water area. There's also lily pads and stuff like that that we see kind of in the early summer and late summer areas. So that translates well to the Harris chain. We also get some of the Highland Reservoir water that is really the clear water that when we get out of state, like say Hartwell or some of these other lakes, and you get spotted bass, those lakes, Norman translates well to Hartwell. So North Carolina treats us really well. Falls Lake, that also translates well to some of the other lakes in the country, just Falls Lake or even Jordan Lake, where, it's a little bit of that Highland Reservoir. It just, where we're at in North Carolina really translates well to like multiple places in the country.
We have covered so much, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but is there anything else that we can promote or need to discuss?
Yeah, I think just letting people know that there are opportunities for kids to get out and fish. It's really easy to start a program in a school. I think a lot of people fear that it's something really hard. Schools a lot of times worry about the liability. Bassmaster, when you have a Bassmaster membership and a Bass Nation membership, it comes with liability insurance that whenever they're at a tournament, they're covered. So a school isn't really on the hook for that liability when kids are competing in tournaments. So if there is any interest at all in starting a high school or a school fishing program, all they need to do is reach out to us at the nchighschoolfishing.com, or come, even here at the show, just come talk to us and we'll help them get started. Because I am a firm believer getting outdoors and getting kids fishing is as good as any sport that there is, offered today. So yeah, I'd love to just have an opportunity to talk to somebody.
Awesome stuff. Well, sir, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
it. Guys, we're going to be taking a short break here. I think Les just went over the mic, said they're going to be closing here early. Instead of 7 p.m., they're going to be closing at 6. So make sure you get in here and get your stuff so you can get out on the road. So, okay, guys, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right righty, we are back, everyone. How's everyone doing on this beautiful Friday afternoon here in Raleigh at the Fishing Expo? We're here with our next guest. I'm just going to stop talking and let this gentleman do it. So, sir, yeah, what's your name and what do we got here?
Catch Outdoors, based out of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Dude, I love the baits that you have here. Absolutely amazing. So, how did this all start?
You want me to go back to when I was 9?
Go for it.
Okay,
Yeah,
how
we got
long you
time.
guys have? I've got all night. So when I was 9, I made my first fishing lure as a Cub Scout for a badge. I caught no fish on it whatsoever, but I kind of got hooked a little bit. And then during the 1980s, you want me to look here or there?
No, usually, man, it's fine.
During the 1980s, my dad opened up an archery shop where I learned how to paint and make stuff by hand. Went off to college, got married, came back and started bass fishing. Decided to start painting lures. Bagley's discontinued one of my favorite lure colors back in the late 90s. It was an ugly little blue color. We called it tuxedo because it looked like a bad 70s tuxedo. So I started learning how to paint it. By 2003, at the dawn of the internet, I started my first business, which was called Custom Lures Unlimited, which is what our manufacturing ID is under. And so I started doing repaints and repairs, fixing old lures, repainting lures for anglers, doing custom colors. By 2006 or 2007, I had to quit my day job. So we've been in business since 2003 officially and been doing it full time since 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that hard to make that jump?
From my original job?
Yeah, going
Well,
full time.
considering I was in the child psychology field, the answer is yes.
Okay, well,
Yes,
how
yeah,
did
I
you
know
get into
there's
that?
a story there.
Yep. Okay, where's the story there?
So the story there is, it's growing up, my dad was into wildlife. So we hunted, we fished, we played baseball. So I always loved to draw as a kid. So the two kind of crashed when I was about 28 or 30. And I realized that I still had the creative gene, but I love the outdoors. So what's more creative than painting fishing lures or building fishing lures from scratch? So that's kind of where it crashed at. The child psychology part, I went off to college, got a psych degree, worked in that for 15 years, and it was fulfilling, but it wasn't what I wanted to do in life.
Where did you work in a school system or?
No, I worked for the state of North Carolina, and
Okay.
I worked at UNC Children's Hospital for several years, and then I worked finally became a supervisor for the state of North Carolina from birth to 3 services, supervising 65 people, sitting in meetings all day,
Good
and
Lord.
it kind of grew old on me.
Yeah.
And when I told my boss one day, I said, I'm not doing you any service because I'm drawing fishing tackle during our meetings. And 2 months later, I quit. I had 1 kid in diapers, and I had 1 kid that was 3 years old, and my wife said, go for it.
That's got to be tough though, like as a career. I mean, rewarding, but not
Right.
not a cakewalk either.
No, neither one of them are a cakewalk.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like this starts as a hobby
Yeah.
and it's fun, and then you have to figure out pretty fast how to make a living doing something. You know, getting a steady paycheck with the state is one thing, but you know, making fishing tackling, I can make anything all day long, but the ability to sell it was something that I didn't have at that time. Looking back, psych degree and business degree don't go hand in hand, put it that way. So I had to figure it out along the way. A lot of trial and error.
It's hard though when you're doing 2 things at once and then you have a family and you're trying
Right.
to get that merged over. I mean, everyone watches the Disney movie of the after the success, but they don't see like what you had to do to get to that
Correct.
ending.
Everybody's, you know, you see the packaging, you see all this. I can assure you that when I started, I didn't know how to design packaging. I didn't know that you needed UPC codes and labels and all your little warning labels and stuff that you had to put on. I knew none of that. Only thing I knew was how to make fishing tackle and how to make it pretty.
So, I mean, now that we're up to date, we're right here now. How do you decide when you have endless amounts of colors, endless things you could choose
Right.
from in the pyramid? How do you write down on paper like this is the 3 or 4 I'm going to start with?
Well, in this case, so this lure here, the icon, It was one of my original carvings and one of the original drawings that I was doing in those meetings. I literally started drawing this in 2005. And I kept drawing. I said, what's the perfect square bill? What's the perfect square bill? And I kept drawing it over and over and over until finally I was like, okay, I've got it. So I started hand carving them. The original ones were wood. And I made this from 2005 until 2015. And at the time, you know, people kind of started shying away. Around 2014 and 2015, they didn't want to buy $20 baits anymore because the economy was so bad.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of move away from custom into more of a production bait. But fast forward to 2025, and now you have the icon is back. It's no longer wooden, but it's the original design. Swims the same, looks the same. I enlarged the eye. I put a one knocker inside of it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's 20 years of work from scratch to finish. Yep, that's the original wood one.
Wow. Now, what are your thoughts, compare and contrast wood baits to the plastics and things they're using now? Is there still a desire for wood? And is that just because it's up here, or is there actually an effect using wood baits?
There's some nostalgia to throwing wood. And wood, if you get a good wood, because these were made out of gelatong, which was it was an Asian wood. Balsa is very super light. Balsa is impossible to carve because it's so flaky, it'll break apart.
Oh,
Gelatong's a little bit harder, but not as hard as basswood. It's kind of in that middle range. You could still carve it and it wouldn't fall apart. Still had the same action, you know, like when you hit cover, it would still back and float up at the same rise rate. The problem with plastic in history is it's been hard to get that same type of float rate to come back. So if you contact cover and you stop reeling, you want it to back up. You'll get a lot of strikes because typically, in theory, the fish are following it, right? And you hit something and it backs up versus keep on going. It's hard to replicate, but it can be done. This one actually took 3 molds before I was like, yeah, we nailed it.
wow.
So a lot of labor.
What goes into creating a new color scheme? Is it like a year of trial and error? It's just one day lightning hits you and you're like, this is what I want to do?
Well, I'm a color person, and this is going to sound really weird, but a lot when I dream, I typically dream in like raging Technicolor, like literally 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. A new color will pop in mind. So that used to happen a lot in the beginning, and now 20 years later, I know exactly what people want. I can paint anything anybody wants, but I know what people tend to gravitate towards and what fish gravitate towards. Used to paint a lot of theme lures. I've painted flag lures. I've painted all kinds of stuff, Halloween lures, theme lures. Can paint anything, but at the end of the day, a fisherman wants something that catches fish. So, you have to narrow it down at some point. I try to get you a couple crawl colors for dirty water, clear water. You always got to have some shad. You've always got to have a bluegill because people love those.
Yep.
Your lavender shads and your citruses are more for summer colors. So color has always been very easy for me.
Can I grab these?
Absolutely. Take this guy.
Guys, look at here. Really get in there on that Sony camera and look at that. I'm not Bob Ross, but is that like a pinkish red then? That's a really cool glow it has on the side. That is so cool. Now, also, I don't know if you guys can feel this through the camera, but the texture here reminds me of the old bombers, the bomber crayfish. Why do you go with that texture?
Just detail.
Detail?
I
Okay.
appeal also some of the characteristics, of the shapes. Obviously, will throw off more vibrations in the water. And people tend to enjoy realistic looking lures. And as you can tell, this one has everything and the kitchen sink attached to it. Here's an interesting story. Obviously, they're both square bills, but the lips that I used on these are the original icons that came in this bait. They're the same ones. And the reason is because it flares out and it deflects cover better, so you're not going to snag up and lose it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What is with chartreuse? Why is it, Jimmy Houston threw it 1,000 years ago, and even to this day it still works. Is it just they can't help it?
Well, I have a theory on, I like contrast. So if you were going to buy a car, would you buy a dull-looking car?
No.
Exactly. If you're a fish and something swims by and you can't see it and you kind of make it out, but if you've got a little light bulb that's coming by you in the water, you know, and it's sticking up like this as it leaves you, you're going to see it. You're going to want it. It's contrast.
Are all chartreuses the same?
No,
Is there...
absolutely not. There's so many variations. Even between these guys here, there's multiple different variations of color. You know, you've got your primary colors, obviously, but you can add chartreuse, you can add a brown, you can do anything you want to mellow it out or flatten it out. You can do all kinds of stuff.
That's interesting.
So there, and even this one is a little bit of a different. This one has some chartreuse in it, but when you merge it with the blue, you get a little bit of a green sheen at the caboose of it.
So now, for my Potomac River guys, what do you guys think of that?
Oh, you said the magic words, didn't you? Potomac River guy.
Oh my goodness. I love how, I mean, this is like what you see like in nature where you have the dark
Right.
on top. I really like how you layered that. That is so cool. Wow.
See, you're a color guy too, aren't you? I can tell.
A little bit.
Well, you know, I like the muted colors. You know, there's nothing wrong with a bright color, but the muted colors are obviously more realistic. And when your water starts to clear, and you know, post spring and post spawn, those are the colors that the lures that tend to light it up. Obviously, you got your dirty water colors over here. And both of these kind of fit that we're molten crawl. We're changing colors from seasons because they change colors all season long. And then at the end of the year, you want to go back with your oranges and your olive backs.
Interesting.
So multiple colors for multiple variations.
Yeah. Now, I've always wondered, why is it sometimes ugly baits work? Like people that just like painted like bright one color without the strands. Is it like getting back to earlier, we talked about the chartreuse, it's just because the contrast of that sheer bone bait or that sheer chartreuse bait? Because it's so weird how you can have a mega jerk bait that is $100 and it's like you can see each scale pattern, or you get a crankbait that's just sheet yellow and
Right.
both will work.
Well, so I'll go back to the Bagley's lure that I mentioned earlier when I first started painting. The color of that one crankbait that they had was similar to this, but it looked more like a powder blue, and it was solid blue. And it would absolutely slate fish on one of our local lakes here called Harris Lake. We called the color Old Blue. And at the same time, you could throw a chartreuse or a muted chartreuse with a blue back and wear them out also. So I think it's a lot based on the water clarity that you're dealing with. And certain bodies of water tend to lean towards certain colors. We have 3 lakes here in this area, Harris, Jordan, and Falls, and they all have different color choices. Every one of them's different. 2 of them are kind of riverine, and Harris is very clear.
Interesting.
So, and a couple of the lures that I've painted, I can take them all day and go to Harris and catch fish, but if I took them to Falls, I don't think I would get a bite on them.
Really?
Absolutely. They're 20 miles apart in distance, and the water clarity is that much different. You go from Falls, which is, you know, you can get clarity 6 inches to 1.5 feet, and at Harris, you can have water clarity up to 7 or 8 feet. So
that is interesting.
yeah.
Now, are you thinking ever of branching out to different styles of crankbaits, or the glide bait scene is big for painting, or like where do you see yourself in a couple of years with it?
Oh, I've had all of that. We've had 28 hard baits at one time, which
Wow.
included we have top waters, we have swim baits, we have our best selling lure and our best fish catching lure is called a jack slap. It's a little tungsten tailspin. We have 46 species on it currently. Saltwater, freshwater. The guy that came today said he won a tournament in Peru for peacock bass.
Peru.
Yes, on Puerto Rico.
But it's still, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love seeing stuff like that.
Yeah.
We get pictures of folks, you know, fishing for trout, for lake trout, for rainbow trout, all kinds of stuff. 46 species on one lure is a blessing.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it catches a little bit of everything. So we have all of it right now. We have top waters. We have jigs. I have a lure called a zero gravity jig, which is I should have brought it. Super weightless jig, no non-lead base, non-tungsten base. It falls at 1 foot every 3 seconds versus 3 foot every 1 second.
Wow.
So super slow falling jig, right? Kind of like this. Great for bedding fish, great for docks. That was I think I came out with it in 2010. In 2011, it won a Tackle Tour Innovation Award for jigs that year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Great. Yeah, we dream in Technicolor.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. We've covered so much. I don't even know what I probably missed something. Is there anything else that we need to make sure we hit on?
Well, both of these are debut. Well, this one is re-debuting again this weekend. The Icon. This is the first time that they've actually been seen in person this weekend, as well as the Crawl 70 is the first time. That's the reboot of the Icon that was from 2005 to 2015. It was Mike Iaconella's signature lure from like 2008, 2011, and he signed with Berkeley short after that. That's why it's called the Icon. And the Crawl 70's debut is today. Literally the first day out in public.
That is, yeah, I love, as a smallmouth guy, a Potomac River guy, I mean, the chartreuse is something. The chartreuse and crayfish, it's money in the bank for us. What is your hottest color right now that's been selling, just in general?
Oh, I think it's lavender shad. At least today it's been the hottest color.
Dude, that one.
And this guy has sold a couple today. You know, it's been a little bit slow with the weather, but people tend to gravitate kind of like you towards the more realistic colors. So these are all nice, but most folks tend to go towards the more natural looking.
Do you ever think about coming out with a smaller size too for like the smallmouth guys?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've had some lures over the year. I had a lure called a Jet Pro, which was a wooden version of this, but it was smaller. We had another smaller version of this called the Icon M2, which was a smaller version of this. So we've had them over the years. It's just a matter of, you know, at some point, if you have 250 SKUs on a rack, you have to start cutting inventory. So I can make anything. It's just a matter of, can you sell enough of them to make it worthwhile to keep them around, you know?
No.
So yeah, we can make anything.
Dude, that is awesome. So if people aren't here right now at the Raleigh show, how can they get a hold of you if they would like to grab something?
Catchoutdoors.com. We also have numerous vendors, including Tackle Warehouse, Land Big Fish, and some other retailers like that. You can find us online. If you ever have any questions, just hit me with a email, info@catchoutdoors.com.
Awesome.
Glad to answer your questions.
Guys, yeah, go check them out. These are some great designs. I am not doing them justice right now. Will you be at the Richmond Expo? Is this your last one, or?
I don't think we're going to make Richmond. We were looking at Knoxville and possibly Martinsville.
Okay.
A lot of it depends on the weather here this weekend, and if we take a big hit on inventory. So, in order to go to all those shows, you have to have a ton of inventory. And we have a couple thousand of these. We might have 150 of these left.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So, guys, you might want to get here and get it while getting's good. Yeah, go check them out. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick little break here. We got a couple more interviews to do before we wrap up here, and we will talk to you guys. All righty, everyone. We are back. We are here. Day number 1 of the Raleigh Fishing Expo. The weather's getting it's getting a little moody outside, but that's not worrying. Is it sleeting out there? Oh, that is just wonderful. If you guys don't know, the show will be closing earlier today at 6 p.m. and then tomorrow it has a delayed start at 10 p.m. weather permitting. AM, what did I say? PM. That's a hell of a late night show. My apologies. They have not let me go from this chair all day. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pass it over to this great gentleman right here. Sir, what do we got going on here and what's happening?
Well, my name is Jeff Shelton, and I'm the owner of Spanker Jig Company. I'm out of Coleman, Alabama, and I've been making jigs for a long time, and I make custom jigs and custom skirts. Well, it got to the point where you couldn't find a good selection of skirt material that you could see in person. So I ordered a lot of skirt material and had it packaged to sell at shows. So you can come by the booth and see 200 colors of skirt material. And what I want to demonstrate to the people that don't know is how to make your own skirt. It's really simple. It takes a few seconds. And when you catch a fish on something you created, it makes it more fun.
So as always, I like to do on the show is, how did you get into this?
The story behind it really is when I fished a lot of tournaments years ago. I was fishing a tournament on my home lake, which is Smith Lake in Coleman, Alabama. And I lost several fish in a row on a jig I had bought from someone. And I thought, well, there's got to be a better jig. So I bought some molds and some different hooks, and I experimented until I found one that I didn't lose as many fish on. And actually in 2006, I won $50,000 on Smith Lake on a jig that I made.
There you go.
And after that tournament, people wanted to buy jigs from me, so I started a company. Started making them then.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's always interesting to hear like how people get into this crazy niche that we have here in the great outdoors. And then so after your big win, did you just go full force into it, or was it like a gradual increase?
No, it was gradual. It actually started with it was an FLW tournament. So the last day you have a camera guy in the boat with you, and he was watching me catch these fish. It was on a color called Spot Special, and I was catching spotted bass like crazy. And he wanted some of that color jig to try in Minnesota for smallmouth. And I said, okay, I'll send you a few. So I sent him maybe a dozen jigs. And a few days later, I got a check in the mail. And I thought, man, I can sell jigs. That was my first sale.
Right place, right time.
Was to the camera guy.
That's
I don't remember his name, but he was a real nice guy. And he made it easy to be on TV. You get nervous when you're on TV.
Oh, I bet.
But he made it comfortable, and we had a good time.
So what are you going to be making for us today?
Well, I'm just going to show everybody. There's different skirt tools on the market, but I use just a simple barrel tool, and this is one I designed and had made. All you do is you have a skirt collar, which holds your skirt material together until you put it on whatever lure you're going to do. So I've got a skirt collar and a skirt tool. And you just put the collar on your skirt tool, roll it up to the end. And what I normally do is put 8 or 10 of them on here to make it quicker. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to put one, and I'm gonna do a two-tone skirt, just for a bass jig. So we've got burnt orange and looks like magic crawl. So to mix those colors, you just get your tabs how you want them. I normally fold it. The ends are still put together. You take the hook of the skirt tool and slide it through the strands. And where the ends are still together, you just hold it, pull it up till the hook catches it. For a two-tone, say I want the burnt orange on the inside closest to the head of the jig. I just wrap it inside itself. Pull the skirt material up inside, roll the skirt collar off, take any kind of scissors, cut the ends off, and you've made a skirt in about 10 seconds.
Wow.
A skirt that I sell at the shows for $1. But it just takes time. But if you want to make your own, you can save a lot of money, and you can come up with any custom color you can think of with all the colors that are out there now.
What?
And that's ready to put on a jig, spinnerbait, chatterbait, whatever you want to put it on. It's ready to go.
Guys, look at that. We'll hold this up to the really good Sony camera here. Look at that shimmer. That's crazy. So, what is the best material to be used? Is there a best? Does anything count if you're just starting out?
Well, normally most people deal with silicone because it's the easiest. It's the easiest to deal with. Until I actually had some round rubber. I'll show everybody. In the wintertime, the bass like rubber jigs. And it got to where a lot of companies didn't deal with it because it was really a pain to deal with. You'd have to buy it on a big long roll. You would have to cut it to length and separate all the strands after you hand tied it on. But now I actually had round rubber made in skirt tabs, just like the silicone. So it's a whole lot easier to make a round rubber jig now. So I'll make one of those real quick. I have two different skirt tools. The red one is for silicone. It'll hold up to 3 tabs of silicone material. The gray one is for the round rubber, which is thicker.
Ah,
and so the gray tool will hold up to 3 tabs of round rubber skirt material. So we'll do a round rubber jig. It's the same thing.
So you see it. Look at that, guys. Devil in the details with that tool. Isn't that crazy?
It's the same thing. It's you roll your skirt collar up, and what we're just gonna do. If I was doing one solid color, I would just take the round rubber, which is already in these same tabs. And once again, you fold it. You put the hook through the strands that are separated. You pull it, make sure the hook catches everything. Make it as round as you can with your fingers. Get it started. Pull it up in here. Roll your skirt collar off.
That is actually not. You don't have to have like a PhD to. That's really cool. Why haven't I done this?
Cut the ends off, and you've made an orange round rubber skirt. Now, if you look at the difference, see how the silicone lays down where the rubber flares more.
Ah.
It does the same thing in the water. So this looks bulkier in the water. So in the wintertime, they like a round rubber jig.
Interesting.
That's just how it's been since I've been fishing. And there's a lot of people that still order round rubber, and especially these tabs. I've seen it I've shipped to 39 different states.
Wow.
Off just round rubber, which to me is pretty good. But if you want to catch more fish and you want to experiment with colors on your favorite lake, you can come to the show. You can come by the Spanker Jigs booth. I'll show you how to do this in person. I actually have videos of this on the website, spankerjigs.com.
Go check it out, guys.
All of this material is in stock on the shelf here in the booth.
Now, we do have a question. We're going to go, guys, I'm going to be giving away some gift cards here today and tomorrow. So make sure you ask good questions. We got one here from Ryan. Is ask if he has played with the number of strands.
The number of strands? I actually have. Most of the time, okay, we'll just say a normal tab of silicone material has 22 strands. Most jigs we use at least 2 tabs, which would be a 44 strand skirt. That's pretty normal. I have went up to as many as 3 tabs, which would be 66 strands if you want a bulkier jig, which would slow the fall.
Thing's gotta look like a raccoon in the water. My God, that thing is thick.
Well, we'll just make one. That's the cool thing about knowing how to do it yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Is if you want to experiment with it, take a few seconds and make one. So I'll make a 66 strand skirt, and we'll just show it, on the camera there and see what people think. So this is just 3 tabs. It's burnt orange barbed wire. Is this color. We're going to pull it up in here. Skirt collar off. Scissors. Cut the ends off. Now I missed some. It's okay. That is a 66 strand skirt compared to a 44. So there is a difference.
Wow.
In some high pressured lakes and real clear water, you might make a skirt with 1 tab to have fewer strands to look more finesse.
So we got a question here on Instagram by B Young. Is a mop jig just a regional name for a football jig?
A mop jig is actually a Buckeye brand name jig.
Oh.
A mop jig is it's a round rubber jig, and the skirt is it's extra thick and extra long.
Okay.
So if you wanted to use my skirt material to make a mop jig, all you would do is not put the skirt collar as far down the skirt. So when you put this on a jig, the skirt would stick out longer.
Okay.
That's all you have to do. But a mop jig is actually a type of jig from Buckeye Lures.
Okay, gotcha.
And
interesting.
but you can still make a round rubber jig like a mop jig. You don't have to pay $6 for a jig. That you don't have to do that. But and I guarantee you, if this were brown, which I have solid brown, I could make one that looked and acted just like a mop jig for a couple dollars a piece.
Do you just use orange for demonstrations, or is there a time and place that's effective?
I just done that for this demonstration.
Okay, cool.
Now, if somebody wants a
He's
certain,
on the secret stuff right here.
no, this is just, I call it my show box. If someone comes by the booth and wants a special color jig, this is where I put my extras.
Okay.
So I can do demonstrations and things like that's red bug. I just chartreuse. I have all kinds of colors.
That red bug was really good.
All kinds of colors left over of skirt material that I sell.
Let's see. We have guys. Yep. And so I got a gift card to give away here for Crop and Kev. You just want a gift card to Jigs Bait and Tackle. Do you use any living rubber strands?
Living rubber. Now, if you're talking about, there's two different types of rubber that we're used to, especially the older guys. There is one that's called, it's a square cut. We call it old school rubber.
Okay.
Now, living rubber is just a round real rubber. This is the same material as living rubber.
Gotcha.
It's just in a tab form instead of on the long rolls where it's harder to work with. This is easier to work with. Before you couldn't put a skirt collar on a round rubber. You had to tie it on with thread, pull it real tight, cut it real slow with scissors to separate the strands, and that hardly ever worked. But with this, they're all separated. Once you cut the ends off, you stick it on your jig, and you're ready to go fishing.
That is interesting.
But it is the same type rubber as the living rubber. When you put it in the water, any kind of little movement, and the legs move with the slightest movement, it's like it's alive, like it's breathing. And that's really how the living rubber got its name. It looks alive in the water.
Gotcha.
I left that off earlier, but that's a good question. That's a great question.
Let me scroll through here. So we got any more? So we got another one on Facebook from Chase06, which is, what is more important, matching the color or the weight of your jig?
They're both important. The weight of your jig, to me, and what I've seen, is what type of mood the fish are in. If they're actively feeding, then you can go slower, let it fall slower. If they're hesitant to bite or they want more of a reaction bite, throw something heavy. I throw up to a 1 ounce jig.
Okay.
And that way they'll see it falling fast. They don't have time to think about it. They either have to bite it or get out of the way. Same like people burning a crankbait.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. It's a reaction bite. If you give them time to look at it, they won't bite it. Now, color matters to me more in clearer water. The clearer the water, the more you want something more natural looking. Like most crawfish have some type of green and orange in them. So a green pumpkin and orange type skirt would be better. In dirty water, you want either a dark color like black and blue or a bright color, chartreuse, something they can easily see.
Okay.
What was the rest? Was that all that question?
That was that question.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Let's see. We got, here's another question. We got Will Nash in the chat. Hi, boss. Does living rubber do better in certain water temps, or is it ideal option in all water temps?
It works the same in all water temps.
All water temps.
The thing about it, when the water's cold, the fish are cold. So their metabolism slows down. So they won't feed as often. So if, say, this jig's sitting on the bottom and the fish is sitting there looking at it, and any little movement is making this thing look alive, they don't have hands, so they might bite it just to see what it tastes like, because they don't know what it is.
Okay.
Well, that's when you set the hook. That's
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But over the years, the rubber itself is more popular in the wintertime when the fish slow down. When you're fishing a jig slower. Now the silicone, it has the same movement no matter what the water color or temperature is. So I use it more in the summertime.
Okay.
Where you're moving it faster. The more you move it, you have to shake it to give its action. So you put this skirt on a chatterbait and it looks better on a chatterbait. But as far as round rubber, I would use it on a jig.
So if you're thinking, so guys, I think I could be wrong, but it's like when it's more of a dead action you're going with, you want living rubber so it does its thing.
Yes, because any slight, you might not even know you're moving your rod, but any slight movement, and it's gonna sit there and it's gonna keep moving.
Interesting.
The current, any kind of current, waves, anything will make this rubber move back and forth in the water.
Is that the weird thought with those dice that Japan's throwing? Is just to get that weird kind of wiggly action from the strands?
Well, the dice gets this action two ways. You can shake it, and it's something the fish haven't seen. Now, nothing in the water that to me looks like a fuzzy dice.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's trying to mimic, but fish are curious, and like I said, they don't have hands, so the only way they see what it is taste it. Is it something I can eat? So they'll taste it and see if they don't like it, they'll spit it out. But by then, you should have set the hook. That's why the fuzzy dice is so popular.
Dude, that makes a lot of sense.
They haven't seen it.
We got another question here. I'm gonna wait till Les finishes this thing. 10. Okay, cool. Sorry, guys. So anyway, the question is, how many strands are perfect for a skipping jig?
For what?
A skipping type of jig.
A skipping jig. I would go 44 strands.
44 strands.
Just two tabs. If you can go up to 50. A lot of times I'll use, say, black and blue. I'll use 2 tabs of black and a half a tab of blue.
Okay.
So you got 44 plus 11, so you got 55 strands. It really doesn't matter. The head design on a skipping jig is more important than the skirt.
Interesting. Okay.
If it's a round head jig, it's not going to skip.
Okay.
Say a Arky style, we'll call it an Arky style. It's got kind of a flat bottom. It'll skip easier than a round head jig. So the head of the jig is more important than the actual skirt.
Well, and
as far as skipping.
Let's keep going down the rabbit hole. So we'll go from the head, the skirt, and then does the trailer matter a lot?
The trailer does matter.
Okay.
The trailer, something skinnier will skip easier.
Interesting.
Because the plastic, or with a flat bottom. Let's see, what's something people are familiar with. So if you take a sweet beaver, okay, a beaver style bait, or you take a fat Albert twin tail grub, the beaver is flatter, so it's going to skip better. Anything that offers resistance on the surface is going to slow your skip down. So you want a jig that has a flat head on the bottom and something streamlined, kind of flat behind it. If there's anything that sticks down in the water, is going to slow that skip. So if you look at the pros, I'm not a pro, but if you look at the pros, when they skip a jig, try to look at it. They'll have something. The head of the jig will be flat, and their trailer will be flat. So once it touches the water, it'll skip like a rock. You can't skip a round rock, but you can skip a flat rock. Same principle.
Interesting. Let's see. We got Brandon. Look on Instagram here. Brandon Solis says, I was watching some pros fishing docks, and they were skipping jigs under it, but they were swimming it back. Is there a specific design they use for this, or was it just a technique?
What they normally do there's not a specific design. Like I said, it has to be a flat bottom head, like an Arky style or whatever your favorite jig company is. Just go and see what they have. I call mine a casting jig. It's an Arky style. It's got a flat bottom of the head, so it will skip across the surface. What they're doing with a swim jig is they're using a heavy gauge hook. That's the main difference between my casting jig and what the pros would skip. They want a bigger, heavy gauge hook. They're using braid, 50-pound braid, and they're yanking the fish out from under the dock when they bite.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, where I fish, we don't do a lot of dock skipping, maybe up under a pontoon boat, but it's 20 foot deep. So you're not really trying to horse them out of there once you set the hook.
What is your setup with your hook so you don't flex it out too much?
I rarely go over 20-pound test.
Okay.
And I normally use fluorocarbon. I don't use, you use 50-pound braid and a pool stick, and you will straighten out 90% of the hooks on the market.
Oh, I bet.
And even I have a flipping jig, or used to have a flipping jig, and people were straightening that hook out on the hook set. And I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you. It was a Mustad, I can't remember the number, but it was made for a flipping jig. You can overpower the hook. I use a light wire hook. That's my preference. So you don't have to set the hooks hard. So the smaller the wire diameter, the easier it is to set the hook. That's why on these doodle minnows, is what I'm gonna call them, with this forward-facing sonar, you use a little thin light wire hook. The fish are almost hooked when they bite. You don't, you're using 8-pound fluorocarbon leader, so you don't have to set the hook that hard.
And I think people really need to understand the science, the autism. You go down the rabbit hole of like making sure your hook and your rod and everything is lined up right. Because if you have a shark gaff and you have a fairy wand, you're just not going to get the penetration, and vice versa. You got to match that stuff up when you do set up.
You do that. To me, jig fishing, I use a 7-foot, 7.4, up to 7.4, medium heavy or a heavy action. It just depends on, like I said, if I'm fishing a lot of blowdowns or cover, I do want to get the fish out of there faster, but I don't necessarily use a thicker hook. That makes me set the hook harder. The heavier rod is to move the fish once you set the hook.
Interesting.
It doesn't give him as much give. That's my preference. Now, everyone's different. To me, a rod that has a little tip, it's not just a super heavy action, is more sensitive. You can feel bites quicker.
That makes sense.
So it's really everyone's preference. But to me, a 7.2 or 7.3 medium heavy extra fast action is a perfect jig rod. Doesn't matter which company. They all make that action rod. They might call it a jig rod, or they might just call it a 7.3 medium heavy extra fast. But they're all the same blanks. They just call them something different.
Dude, that is awesome. I mean, guys, you got the knowledge bomb here with all this. If people can't make it to Raleigh, where can they find you to get a hold of your skirts? Are you gonna have any more expos you're going to be going to this year? I
will. I'm going to 5. The next one I'm going to is the East Tennessee Fishing Show in Knoxville, Tennessee. After that, I'm going to go to Columbus, Ohio, to the National Fishing Expo. I've never been that far north. So we're going to see what happens when I take my southern stuff north. I don't know what's going to happen. And then I have one in Cartersville, Georgia. Okay. And in Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh, awesome.
That'll be my 5 shows this year. But if you want to watch videos as far as making this, I have them on my website, spankerjigs.com. Just look under the videos tab, and what I just showed you, there's videos there. And if you want to check out some of this material, it's my website. There's a website store. So you just click store or shop all, and you'll get to see I sell jigs, skirt material, jig heads, pretty much anything other than soft plastics. I don't do soft plastics. But anything that's poured with lead, I have something. Okay. I pour all my lead myself. Been doing it for years. I don't mind. It's actually, I'll turn on music and sit there and dump out 1,000 hooks and start pouring. Wow. So I pour that all in my shop in Alabama. The skirt material, I'm not going to lie, it either comes from China or Vietnam. Mine comes from China. I like the way it feels. It's softer, and it doesn't break as easy. So that's why I went with the Chinese style. But anyway, yeah, if you want to shop, if you're snowed in and want to shop, go to spankerjigs.com and just look at some of the stuff we have. I do a flat rate shipping of $5.95, so I don't price gouge you on shipping like some companies, and it's free shipping over $75. I don't know what else to say.
Dude, guys, go check him out. This is a great little hobby to get into while it's like -6 outside right now. So go check him out there. If you're in the area, head on to the Raleigh show. I'll be at Richmond next weekend. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and I'll be right back for... Oh, actually, we got one more. Joseph, you know what? I feel like I'm a hollow chair. Is there a particular knot you prefer for jig fishing, given the strong hook set, etc.?
Well, I use a polymer knot.
Boom.
I even use it for fluorocarbon. And the secret, I don't have fishing line here, I will show you. The secret to the line not breaking on the hook set is when you tie the polymer knot, you have the tag end, which is the short end, and you have the main line, which goes back to your reel. Never pull the main line tight. Get it snug, tighten the tag end, then cut the tag end off. You won't have a problem breaking off on the hook set. You don't have to tie a special fluorocarbon knot.
Okay.
The only time you have to do that is when you tie braid to fluorocarbon. Now, there's several knots there. We won't get into that. But as far as just tying fluorocarbon to a jig, I never have a problem with just a polymer knot. That's what I think it's what it's called. I don't know how you spell it, but just remember, don't pull on your main line.
Yeah.
All you're doing is damaging it. But if you pull your tag in tight, cut it off, you shouldn't have a problem on the hook set.
There you have it, guys. We're going to be taking a quick little commercial break. Go check out all of his stuff on his website. Link is in the episode description down below, and we'll be right back after commercial break. Yeah. That's how exhausted I am. United We Stand, thank you for telling me I muted myself like a dumbass. I appreciate it. So let's try this again. Yeah, I'm exhausted. So anyway, 10 a.m. tomorrow is when we're going to probably start. I'm going to be dropping a schedule. It's going to be 9:30. I'm going to start at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I'll be the first one. I'll be doing a weather report from 6 a.m. until 9:30. Boring as hell, but come watch paint dry. No, we're going to be starting at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, and we're going to be going until I drop, probably 7 p.m. We have a bunch of interviews lined up. I'm going to be putting all the interviews on a thumbnail schedule, and I'll be making that my backdrop so you can see. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow morning. Be safe out in the water. Goodbye.